Hey everyone, I'm Army Gaming. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is Ihtiander. Ihtiander? What the heck? Social Point doesn't even know what his name is. Ihtiander spent his youth under the sea wondering what the world would look like. One day he dreamt that Yeltsin gave him eyes to see not only what happens outside the sea, but also the future and the past. When he woke up, he found new eyes on his body and that in fact, he had the powers from his dreams. And so here we have Ihtiander, that's how I'm going to be referring him throughout the duration of this video. And for those of you that can't tell, he's basically a combination of Yeltsin and Eni. So when you combine these two monsters and you mix them together, you get Ihtiander. And this monster is one of the newest and latest water legendary monsters, and currently as of the time recording this video, there's a total of 28 water legendary monsters. This monster is also in the Dragon book, and currently there's 29 legendary dragon monsters. And he's also in the Sea book, and currently there's 27 legendary monsters in the Sea book. And then lastly, he's in the Good Legions book, and the Good Legions book has a lot of monsters. There are currently 58 legendary monsters, so I'm going to do my best to compare Ihtiander to these monsters. And so with that out of the way, let's jump into the stats. He has a power of 3,168, which is on the rather lower end. This actually puts him in 22nd place, tied with Kaolic. And again, there's only 28 water legendary monsters, so 22nd place, that's a really bad power. However, that doesn't matter because this monster, you're going to see he doesn't even need power. As for his life, it's 29,255, and this is a pretty good life. It puts him in 7th place, tied with 4 other water legendary monsters. And as for his speed, he has a speed of 3,476, which is actually the second highest speed stat for water legendary monsters. And with this speed stat, he's actually tied with Kihaku, Vodunoi, and Frostwrath. And the only monsters faster than Ihtiander and the ones I just mentioned would be Blob, who has a base speed of 3,509. So this is a crazy fast monster. And as for his trait, he's immune to freeze, which is what typically a lot of water monsters tend to have. And this actually is a really great trait, especially if you put this monster on defense, because in the Dragon book, for the longest time one of the fastest monsters was Frostwrath, and Frostwrath could AoE freeze you and you'd have no defense against it. Well, now that we have Ihtiander, we have a defense. Not to mention there's also Hydrotilla the Icebringer specifically, and there's also Lucifer that you can encounter, both of which have freeze skills, so if you encounter those monsters on defense, they're not going to be able to immobilize you. So having immunity to freeze and being a dragon does help him out there. However, with the recent changes to possession and thus making possession one of the most powerful deny skills, you do have to worry about facing a monster that's faster than you. If you're facing an egg eater who has better runes than you do not want to take him on with this monster, because if you get possessed, you're going to be doing some serious damage to your own team. So just keep that in mind if you have this monster and you're taking him out to wars or to player versus player or wherever. As for the Sea book and Good Legions book, he has a lot of competition, more so in the Sea book, and in my opinion, I think he can hold his own. And so with all that being said, let's talk about the skills. Starting off with the ultimate skill, Control of the Oracle. Deals very heavy special damage to all enemies, applies possession to all enemies. So this is an AoE attack that deals 60 special base damage, and it applies possession to all of the enemy monsters. Now, 60 damage special based, this is awesome, but at the same time, you don't have a high power, you're not there to deal power. The cool thing about this ultimate attack is the AoE possession. Enough said. He has an AoE possession for an ultimate, let's move on. In skills group 1, there's really nothing worth talking about anymore. In the past, I would have taken the time to talk about battle anticipation. It's a self skill, meaning that you would have technically been immune to possession. But just in case there's someone new out there, someone that doesn't know, the recent change to possession makes it so that when you get possessed, you can't recharge or you can't select what skill to use. Basically, it's almost like the AI is taking control, right? It's going to do a random skill against yourself. So even if you run this skill, there's only what, a 20-25% chance to actually use this skill? So unfortunately, it's rather useless now. And so with that out of the way, let's move on over to skills group 2. Curse of the Foresight. Deals heavy special damage to one enemy, applies blind to one enemy, requires cooldown. 50 special base damage, 22 stamina cost, 1 turn cooldown, and it applies blind, which lasts for 2 turns. And blind makes it so the enemy's accuracy is reduced by 50%, thus making it so most of their attacks won't be landing against you. Typical attacks have a 95% accuracy, and then AoEs tend to have a 90% accuracy, and so if you blind an enemy monster, their single target attacks, that's going to be reduced to 45% accuracy, and as for their AoEs, that's going to be a 40% accuracy. So you can imagine most of their attacks are going to be missing. And as for whether or not you want to run the skill, it's ultimately going to be up to you. You're going to see that you can pretty much run anything in skills group 2, and then you have to run all of skills group 3, because skills group 3 is where it's at. And so the next skill is Frosty Insight. Deals moderate water damage to one enemy, applies freeze to one enemy, requires cooldown. 40 water-based damage to a single enemy monster, 26 stamina cost, 2 turn cooldown, and it applies freeze to that one enemy monster. And so this is a pretty straightforward skill. I have no idea why it's saying minus 15%. I am pretty sure it's still minus 2%. There's no way freeze would be minus 15% because considering you can freeze back to back, that would just be crazy good. And so anyhow, once again, it's really going to be up to you to decide whether you want to run the freeze skill, or the blind skill, or Thrilling Memories, which is a single stun skill. deals heavy water damage to one enemy, applies stun to one enemy, requires cooldown. So 45 damage, 26 stamina cost, 2 turn cooldown, and it's a stun. So again, straightforward. Do you want to stun, do you want to freeze, or do you want to blind? Is there such a thing as a right or wrong answer? Not really, although I imagine most people are going to be deciding between the two water attacks, either Frosty Insight or Thrilling Memories. Reason being is that with freeze, you can freeze back to back to back, whereas with stun, after you stun a monster, they have immunity to stun for the next turn. So running Thrilling Memories may not come in handy that often, although considering you're a water monster, typically water monsters tend to be immune to freeze. The only water monsters that are immune to stun that come to my mind are Varna and Vampirium, which to be honest you really don't see that much on player versus player or on team wars. And so for that reason, it may be worthwhile running Thrilling Memories. At the same time, however, if you go first and you deny the enemy team, by the next turn typically the enemy deny monster is already dead, so you don't need to worry, and typically the water monster tends to be the deny monster, so you don't need to worry about trying to immobilize the water deny monster again. So for that reason, I imagine most people will be running Frosty Insight. But again, you really can't go wrong with any of them, with any of the three really, but you really should just be picking between Frosty Insight or Thrilling Memories. And with all that out of the way, let's get into skills group 3, Insight to the Future. Deals very heavy special damage to one enemy, applies blind to all enemies, requires cooldown. 55 special base damage to a single enemy monster, 22 stamina cost, a 1 turn cooldown, and it's an AoE blind. What the heck, I don't get it. Insight to the Future, Curse of the Foresight, like this doesn't really make any sense. Insight to the Future deals 5 more damage, and it's an AoE blind instead of a single blind. So you know what, forget what I said about skills group 2, Curse of the Foresight, you have no reason to run this. Considering Insight to the Future, it's the same thing but an AoE, same stamina cost, same turn cooldown, but 5 more damage, doesn't make any sense. So yeah, run all of skills group 3 and then decide between Frosty Insight or Thrilling Memories. But yeah, Insight to the Future, I love this skill. There have been so many situations where I've blinded the enemy monsters, and that alone has saved me. Keep in mind that blind lasts for 2 turns, whereas freezing or stunning, that's only for 1 turn. And so when those enemy monsters were blinded, their attacks kept missing and I was able to emerge victorious. And so I'm a huge fan of blind, and you should definitely run this skill. And next up is Chilling Vision, applies freeze to all enemies, requires cooldown. And so here we have an AoE water attack that deals no damage, it costs 32 stamina with a 2 turn cooldown, and it freezes all of the enemy monsters. Pretty straightforward AoE, it's a must run skill. And as for the last skill, Dazzling Premonition, applies stun to all enemies, requires cooldown. Once again, water AoE, deals no damage, 32 stamina costs 2 turn cooldown, but it's an AoE stun. So what do we have here? We have an AoE stun, an AoE freeze, and an AoE blind. So this monster is a better Cabinfish, essentially. He has more life than Cabinfish, he's faster than Cabinfish, same trait as Cabinfish, they both have AoE stun and AoE freeze. But again, in Ihtiander, this monster is faster, which is essentially what really matters in Monster Legends. Now don't get me wrong, Cabinfish does himself have some advantages. For example, he has a support skill that gives a monster 50% damage increase, it gives a monster energy regeneration, and it gives the monster increased accuracy, so their next attack is going to be buffed, they're going to have enough stamina to do a next attack, and they're not going to be missing. That's pretty good. And he also has a skill called Lead Rain, which is skills group 1, and it has a 50% chance to stun all of the enemy monsters, so that can definitely come in handy. But in terms of just straight denial, in terms of who's faster, who has the greater chance to deny, considering this monster is faster and can do the same thing, stun or freeze, he's a superior Cabinfish in my opinion. And so yeah, this monster is pretty straightforward. Dazzling Premonition, Chilling Vision, Insight to the Future, and then one of skills group 2, either Frosty Insight or Thrilling Memories, with myself advocating towards Frosty Insight. And as for runes, you want to give this monster 3 speed runes, give him your best speed runes, because you definitely want to go first and immobilize the enemy team. And that's actually going to conclude this analysis. It was pretty fast because this monster is just really straightforward. There's really no mystery when choosing the skills. He has really great skills, he has great stats, he has a great trait, he's a great monster. He might be a contender for one of the top water legendary monsters. I'm really curious to know what you guys have to say about this monster. Let me know in the comments below. How good do you think he is compared to the other water monsters? How good do you think he is in the Dragons book, the Sea book, the Good Legions book? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm Armor Gaming, and like always, remember to dream big and pursue your passions.